Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 4. And I'm Liz Wolfe.
And I'm Mike Wilner.
And today we have an awesome interview with two amazing people, locally known, but also nationally known, one of which is Andy Statman, that mandolin virtuoso, and many other instruments as well, as it turns out.
And Brooklyn legend. Talk about living proof that Brooklyn is the Bluegrass borough.
And we also have a follow-up interview with Riyae Park.
Yes, we just checked back in with her to see what she's been up to since last we spoke. Also, she's going to be performing at the 11th Annual Roots and Ruckus Festival. That's presented by the Jalopy Theater, a iconic venue for bluegrass here in Brooklyn. She'll be performing on Friday, December 6th. Check the program notes and we'll have some more information on that.
Speaking of shows, how about that show we went to just the other night at the Music Hall of Williamsburg? Yeah. Both Mike and I got to go to see AJ Lee and her band, as well as East Nash Grass, which was an amazing night. Anybody in the bluegrass scene was there. We saw lots of our friends. We saw the West Side Cowboys. I saw my friend Hannah. You saw Will. Phyllis Elkine was there. So lots of fun personalities. I
ran into Austin Skelzo and many others. So it was a glittering evening here in the Bluegrass borough. But possibly the most amazing thing was when AJ Lee and Blue Summit was done, she was the second act. She and her band and East Nash Grass stepped down off the stage, got in the middle of the audience, circled up, and started jamming.
Yeah, that was really cool. I was right. And to hear those acoustic instruments just right live in my ear was really beautiful, really exciting part of the night.
Yeah, and let's not forget, among those instrumentalists, we had Maddie Denton, who was IBMA's Fiddle Player of the Year, and other really amazing and high-powered musicians.
Speaking of other events, did you catch that highlight reel I put up on Facebook about Jam Jersey?
Yeah, very cool. I really enjoyed that. There was a retrospective on last year's event, which was a lot of fun.
Yes, put together by Isabel Clavo, also a local personality. She was very generous with her time to create that, and it's really fun to watch because there's lots of scenes of different people and all the things that we did. And so thank you, Isabel, for putting that together. Take a look. You can always friend Jam Jersey on Facebook in case you aren't already friends with Jam Jersey, and then you'll be able to see the reel or check out my feed.
Right. By the way, our intro track was Stony Lonesome, Andy Statman and Ricky Skaggs doing dual mandolin on Andy's album Bluegrass Track. Okay, so please remember to follow us on social media. You can find us at Bluegrass Brooklyn, Brooklyn spelled BKLYN. On Instagram, you can visit our Facebook group. You can visit us at bluegrassbrooklyn.com. And if you're looking for jams in Uptown Manhattan, Bronx, Riverdale, and even New Jersey, go check out bluegrassjamsnearme.com.
All right, let's get started with our interviews.
Absolutely. Let's roll. Here I am with mandolin legend Andy Statman. Andy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Andy, you have a long and storied musical biography. Let's talk about your origin story in music. How did you get started and where did you start?
I come from a musical family, particularly on my mother's side. There's generations of cantors, and when they came to America, they became Broadway musicians, classical musicians. One became a very famous songwriter, Sammy Fain, who wrote Love is a Many Splendid Thing, I'll Be Seeing You, and he wrote a lot of standards. So there was always music in the house. I heard all sorts of music. I was taken with a number of different instruments, but when I was in my pre-teens, My brother started listening to bluegrass. And at that time, I was also very much into what they call DXing, which is getting out-of-town radio stations, and you write down information and you send them a letter with the information of what was being broadcast at what time or what day. They send you a picture of their studio or the transmitter, the tower, whatever. I started listening to WWVA from Wheeling, West Virginia, which used to be all country music and bluegrass after sundown, basically, was when you could get it in New York. And my brother had a jug band, and they had a bluegrass banjo player in that band, and I began to listen to my brother's bluegrass records and got into it.
You grew up in Queens, New York?
In Jackson Heights.
We're not going to hold that against you. We'll officially confer Brooklyn citizenship on you now, even though I know you're a transplant and you live in Brooklyn now. So
I've been in Brooklyn since the mid-'70s. So.
Well, maybe you're naturalized on your own. So let's talk about what instruments you play. You're very well known for mandolin, and I'm just going to comment this for the listeners. The first time I saw you play was with Michael Daves and those guys. I think it was at Rockwood Music Hall. Right. And I was the guy in the front row with my jaw dropped and staring with disbelief at watching you play. I'd never seen or heard anything quite like you're playing. You don't just play mandolin. Why don't we go through your inventory of what you do play?
I started out when I was around 11 or 12 playing guitar, and then I got into banjo. I used to go down to Washington Square on Sundays and play down there. By the time I was 15, I was really liking the mandolin. And there were a lot of really great banjo players around, and I figured I'd make the move to the mandolin. And a few months earlier, I had seen David Grisman playing in a group called the Garrett Mountain Boys. David Grisman was a number of the second-generation bluegrass people in New York City, a lot of really great musicians. So I got Dave's number and started taking lessons from him. When I was about 17, I'd been planning to move down to Nashville and see if I can get a job down there with some band. But I was listening to a lot of jazz at that point and became very interested in different types of jazz, particularly a lot of what they used to call free jazz. I decided I needed to make a change. I decided that if I started learning jazz on a string instrument, I would be replicating a lot of the bluegrass ideas that I know from a string instrument. And I felt that a lot of emotion could be expressed through a wind instrument. So we had a saxophone in the house, and I loved saxophone. So I started taking saxophone lessons.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think you really dove deep into that, didn't you?
Yeah, I studied with a guy named Richard Grando, who was living in Brooklyn at that time. And we became very close, as I did with David Grisman. So, they're two of my main teachers.
So now we have jazz, bluegrass covered. So when did you pick up the clarinet? You migrated from clarinet to, or added clarinet on top of saxophone?
At that time, jazz was very much into using the music as a vehicle for expressing spirituality and exploring spirituality. I became interested in religions and things, and they were listening to all sorts of different types of what we used to call ethnic music, like traditional music from different parts of the world. And there were still areas where you'd have regional sounds in the Balkans and in India and throughout. And that doesn't exist as much as it used to anymore. But somehow I don't know where I got a clarinet, and I started getting into it and playing it. I was always juggling a number of different things simultaneously. I started studying a type of music from a place called Ypres, where Albania and northern Greece meet. Very beautiful clarinet style and musical style. And I was also, at the time, playing a tar, which is an instrument used in Persian music, but I was studying Azerbaijani classical music with someone who lived in Brooklyn at that time. And as I became more interested in my own background, personal family background, and Judaism, one of the two or three greatest musicians who came over was a man named Dave Taras. So I started studying with him. I mean, there's so much going on. I was with Breakfast Special on the road for a number of years, and that band ended, and I was playing saxophone and mandolin with him. When I came back to New York, I moved to Brighton Beach and called up Dave Taras, and we began a real serious relationship at that point. That was klezmer music, so I was working with a man named Zev Feldman, and he was playing the cymbal. It's the Ethiopian or the Jewish hammer dulcimer, and we did one of the first klezmer records with traditional music.
Wow.
At that time, I was playing simultaneously in blues bands and rock and roll bands and bluegrass bands with Wretched Refuse, and I do studio work, and I found a lot of different styles of music at that point.
How do you keep all that straight? Most of us have trouble pursuing one or two styles. How do you, in your mind, shift the mental focus?
Well, stylistically, the first thing you have to do is you really have to learn one style. You have to really master a style and be able to express yourself freely in the language. So that means transcribing hundreds of solos and playing it all the time and listening. And eventually your own style will develop in that style. Mm-hmm. And once you're really rooted in a style, you'll understand what makes it work, what type of tone you want to go for, the note selection, the phrasing, the dance tunes, the more introspective tunes, how to improvise in the style. And if you go to another style, you already have a pre-existing understanding of what makes a style work. And you have a better understanding how to get into it and to go for what's deep in the style.
Interesting. So by mastering one specific style and really getting it to be part of you, that makes picking up the next ones more possible.
100%. It's like if you speak French, once you speak French, it might be fluently. It's probably not difficult to learn Italian or Spanish. Right. I was learning more diverse styles, but it's all there. You understand where the goods are, and you understand how to mine those goods. And it just takes a lot of time, and the truth is you never really master a style.
Yeah.
It's always an ongoing thing. But what you try and do is have the style live inside of you and become part of you. And when you're dealing with multiple styles, the trio, the group I've worked with for about 25 years, which is myself and Larry Eagle on drums and percussion, and Jim Whitney on bass. Mm-hmm. And we do mainly music that I've composed over the years. We have a whole bunch of albums out, and everything is pretty much improvised. I'm never quite sure how we're going to play a tune and what we're going to do with it. But we do some fiddle tunes or some Bill Monroe tunes or bluegrass tunes. And we do a lot of, not so much klezmer or Hasidic music, but it's more open and improvisational. Everything is sort of fluid.
That's a very broad spectrum, and I think I get a better idea how you keep that straight in your mind, but it's still pretty amazing.
Well, I used to isolate what I was doing, and when I was in my 40s, 50s, I decided that I'm just going to play and not really worry about it, unless I'm being called on to play the straight ahead this or straight ahead that. I'll just let the ideas flow and let it go where it wants to go. And so it really depends on what I'm feeling at the moment.
Listening to you play solos is pretty eye-opening. The ideas just keep coming out. How do you get to that state of flow?
I mean, for bluegrass, I must have learned a few hundred Bill Monroe solos. I trained my wrist to be able to sound like Bill Monroe and understand how his tone expressed his ideas. I also did the same with people like Bobby Osborne or Jesse McReynolds or Frank Wakes. So part of it is internalizing the language and then just letting it happen. It's hard to describe. When I'm improvising, I have the melody of the tune in mind, so I'm working off that. But sometimes I'll play the melody, sometimes I'll play something off the melody. It's really a question of the moment and what the other musicians are doing. It becomes like a conversation within the band. It affects how you're going to play. There's so much great music out there to draw inspiration from, and as you play over the years, you just develop your own language and your own approach, what works for you and what you like.
I just got into bluegrass 2 and change years ago and started on banjo, liked it, migrated to mandolin as a complementary instrument, loved it, then was told that the fiddle has the same fingering as mandolin, and as soon as I picked up a fiddle, that was it. My journey was over. That's the instrument I want to play. Late 60-something guy picking up the fiddle, you can imagine that's an almost vertical learning curve that I'm climbing.
Well, I mean, your fingers were already developed from the other instruments. I guess the bowing and the intonation are the things you have to deal with.
The intonation, you said the magic word. Then I look at my right hand and say, boy, I feel like I'm wielding a saw here. I look at videos of, say, Kenny Baker, and his hand and arm is so relaxed, I don't even know how he doesn't drop the bow. His hand looks like it's limp. It's so relaxed, and he's not an ounce of tension in the guy, and yet listen to what he plays.
Everyone has a different left hand and right hand, and everyone is going to feel a little bit differently, and everyone has slightly different muscles. I would think the main thing to do is be relaxed. I've worked with a lot of great fiddlers and violinists, and they can play intensely, but they're not really thinking about it. That's just from practice and doing it, and then you don't really think about it.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Speaking of violinists, you had mentioned a violinist you have worked with or doing work with.
Yeah. We're playing at the Beacon Theater on the 29th of September with Yitzhak Perlman in the Fiddler's House show, and I've been doing that with him since the mid-'90s.
Wow.
Yitzhak, just a wonderful musician and wonderful person.
What's it like playing with him?
For what I do, basically, is there's an ensemble, and then I come out and play a few tunes. Actually, I'm playing more mandolin than clarinet. I was playing more clarinet than mandolin over the years. But anyway, we do 2 songs I wrote, and we just improvise. Clarinet song is all pretty much improvisation. There's a melody. But what I do with him is it's pretty much all improvisation. Yitzhak's a wonderful improviser, particularly in the style. But I can go anywhere I want with him.
Oh, you've played with many of the greats, and I recognize this has got to be a tough question. Is there one musical moment that sticks out in your mind that you'd like to share?
I've been very blessed with being able to play with a lot of really great musicians who I've learned from and played some wonderful music with. And I don't know, they were all great. I remember when I was going through a heavy-duty Bill Monroe stage when I was about 15 and 16, there was a park called Sunset Park in rural Pennsylvania, about 2.5, 3 hours away. And on Sundays they have an open concerts, and they bring all the great bluegrass people there. So I remember we went down to see Jimmy Martin playing down there, and he had Vassar with him. And Vassar, to me, he played on all those great Bill Monroe songs back in the 50s.
Yep.
And he's pretty much my favorite fiddle player. I asked him something, he just showed me something. I was about 15, 16. I was usually scared of all these guys, but Vassar was just so friendly. He was completely approachable. And we struck up a relationship, and I guess I was on the bus touring with him 10 years later. But Vassar was one of the great improvisers, I think, of the late 20th century, 21st century.
He really changed the way the fiddle was played in bluegrass music and played it differently than anybody else had played it.
Yeah, he developed his own style. He was a very blues-oriented player, and I used to stay at his house. He had Louis Jordan records, a bunch of Louis Jordan like reissues on CD. That was one of the only few things he had in his house. And one other thing that was special is playing the Grand Ole Opry.
That's incredible. Who did you play with?
And I played with Jake Eddy and his brother on bass, and we were touring for a while a few years ago, and we were on the Opry twice.
That's amazing.
So I did that Flatbush Waltz there, and I did one of the things I do with Perlman. It was really great, amazing experience.
What are you listening to when you're hanging out and just want to relax? Is there any particular music that's on your playlist or on your turntable or whatever?
I basically listen to pretty much everything. Recently, I've been listening to some. Naftali Brandwein is one of the great old klezmer clarinetists. I've been listening to Lee Morgan and Sonny Rollins. I've been listening to Richter, the great Russian classical piano player. Yeah, a lot of old rock and roll I like. I just, as David Grisman put it, there's more music recorded than you could possibly even listen to if you wanted to.
Do you have any words of wisdom to the young and upcoming Andy Statman who's just getting started in music?
I would say just really try and master one style. Really go as far back as you can in the style. Go back to the roots of the style and really learn it. I know in particular bluegrass, a lot of people don't really go back past the late 90s or something like that. To really understand what the music is and where it's coming from, you really need to go back to the 1939, 1940, if not earlier, but listening to the original Bluegrass Boys recordings. And the Bluegrass Boys with Flatt and Scruggs, and certainly when he had Jimmy Martin and all the old stuff, the Osborne Brothers, Jim and Jesse. Before that, they were the Virginia Trio. There's just so much great bluegrass out there. So
your advice is dig deep and get well grounded.
Dig deep, and I think you'll get more for your buck if you concentrate on the pre-1975 and 1970 stuff. I think that's really where a lot of the gold is buried. And music is always going to change. And it's not uniformly, but some of it's getting pretty slick and very virtuosic. But a lot of it is just sounding very much the same.
Yeah.
So back in the early 50s, had all these great singers. Each had their own sound. Each band had its own sound. Everyone played differently. I think there was a bit of more individuality and self-expression back then than there might be now. Now things are a little bit like, at least from what I hear, it can be very uniform sounding. Everything really well done, very well played, very well sung. But then on the other hand, is I hear a lot of bands that are not slick and really rooted in the past and sound great.
If I was to ask you to pick your favorite mandolin player, favorite's a bad word. Let me ask it differently. A mandolin player who's had the most impact on your musical style.
Well, I would say David Grisman and Bill Monroe.
So we're going to create one entity out of the two of them. Yeah.
And David is coming out of Bill Monroe via Frank Wakefield, but Frank was David's main teacher. Although Ralph Friends was also, but Frank really was, I think, his main teacher. And Frank had to play exactly like Bill Monroe. And they developed their own style out of that.
Very interesting.
Monroe really has I don't want to say it's the deepest, but he has a number of really diverse, deep elements going through him of the synthesis that he put together. And he really digs down deep. He's just incredibly creative and very much in the moment. Flat and Scruggs were great also. I mean, Flat and Scruggs basically took the Bill Monroe bands from 1947, 48, and that became their sound. And they developed that a little bit more. But as great as they are, they don't always have that sort of edge that I like that Bill Monroe has, or sort of that wildness maybe. I mean, Lester Flatt's incredible. I mean, Scruggs is incredible. I mean, they're all, but I mean, Lester is such a great singer. Was such a great singer and guitar player. I mean,
he says it's so easy to listen to, but when you start studying his vocal style a little bit, at least I started realizing just how much nuance and how much really meticulous rhythm, syncopation, expression he put into his singing.
Oh, he's great. I mean, listen, he worked with Charlie Monroe, and then he went right to Bill Monroe, and Monroe shaped all those guys. And Jimmy Martin, he had Don Reno with him, and Benny Martin, and Chubby. All these guys were shaped by Monroe.
Yeah.
And for me, probably my favorite Monroe period is when Jimmy Martin was with him. The music those guys recorded was just some of the high points in bluegrass. I love other periods as well, but I think my personal favorites are around then. But early 50s, mid-50s, it was just all great music. But I think it's important for people to go and hear like the original versions.
I love bluegrass fiddle, and it speaks to me, but on the other hand, being a newbie, I kind of ran into the inexplicable divide between bluegrass and old-time music. That people who play in bluegrass jams are like, don't old-time jams, they just play the same thing over and over again, and boring, don't want to do it. And old-time people are like, bluegrass is a pop culture derivative.
Well, it is pop culture, but the thing is all Tanner and all these guys that recorded for commercial record companies, it's not a black and white issue.
Yeah.
And particularly you had virtuosos, and these guys also used to dress in suits and ties. You had virtuosos like Clark Kessinger and Arthur Smith writing great tunes, playing great tunes. Bluegrass fiddle playing came out of that stuff. But the one guy who I see almost no young people know about, who's probably the most important bluegrass fiddle player, is Chubby Wise.
Chubby's the best.
And yeah, I mean, his sound and his expressiveness, the tone and the ideas, you can't really beat him. He's really, really amazing, and particularly on those old records he did when he was in Monroe with Flat and Scruggs or Mac Wiseman in the mid-late 40s.
I listened to a lot of his bluegrass work with Monroe, and then I also listened to some of his other solo stuff, and just like many fiddle players, he has lots of just him playing fiddle tunes and all kinds of music, and he's very special.
Yeah, but particularly his soloing on the vocal tunes and the way he backs up on the vocal tunes, that was the template for what a bluegrass fiddle player should really do. Just as what Scruggs is doing on those records and with Monroe became the template for the way banjo players should play behind a vocal. Or it's Benny Martin. He learned a lot from Chubby Wise. I mean, he was the guy, and he seems to be almost completely neglected nowadays.
I agree. You don't hear him talked about much, but that's a shame, and he really should be So let's shift topics a little bit. You've got some records coming out or recently published?
Well, a recent record that came out on the Shuffle label is it's called Bluegrass Tracks, and that was recorded before COVID. And it was some Bill Monroe tunes and mainly a bunch of original tunes I wrote. And it was with Ron Stewart playing fiddle and banjo and Byron Berline, one of his last recordings he did on fiddle. And Brian Sutton on guitar, Mike Bubb on bass, Ricky Scares came in. We did some twin mandolin tunes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great band. That came out a few months ago. And I have a record of material that I recorded back. This is more in the sort of, for lack of word, klezmer. There's mandolin playing on it, but a lot of it's very improvised and a bit avant-garde. But there's also a lot of reworked traditional Jewish melodies, which were used to write my own melodies with, and it's stuff I was fooling around with back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Wow, so really vintage.
It was led to a record I did called Between Heaven and Earth, which was nominated as one of the top 10 records of the years in the Times. And there's Kenny Werner on piano and Bob Wiener on drums and Harvey S. on bass. And that was basically old Hasidic tunes, but given an open sort of Coltrane-ish type of... I always thought that stacked fourth chords would work great under these modal melodies. And Kenny was the perfect guy to do that. And that was one of the great bands I had. We toured a bunch and stuff. And so...
That's exciting.
So I have a lot of different styles that I like to explore. So
it's really inspirational to hear the breadth of musical inputs you take and how many things you've exposed yourself to and really learned how to do. I started off fiddle feeling like, I just want to do bluegrass music of this period, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I listen to all the time. But it took me a while to open my ear and say, yeah, but there's all this other stuff. There's old time, there's Cajun, there's Western swing, there's all related.
You can't do everything simultaneously because then you'll be a jack of all trades but a master of none.
Yeah.
And you're better off becoming a master of one style that you can really say what you need to say in that style deeply. And then if you feel you need to go on to another, then you can do that. Bill Monroe always said you have to know what note's going to help the music and what note is going to hurt the music. And that's where you make the choices.
So, Andy, where can the listeners find you online if they want to learn more?
Okay, well, so for the gigs with the trio, that's with me and Jim Whitney and Larry Eagle, that's andystatman.org.
Mm-hmm.
And the other gigs, I guess they're just advertised via Facebook or whatever, Instagram. Okay. I have a regular gig at Barbez on the first Wednesday of every month, and that's with the trio, and usually have some guests sitting in. Actually, Michael Daves comes down and sits in quite often when he's in town. So Great. I'll actually be doing some gigs with Michael in the fall and the winter and all these different bands I play with. But
checking in at andystatman.org, people can start there and then find other stuff.
Yeah, that's the trio, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Interesting. Alrighty, Andy, I want to thank you very much for taking time with us today.
Sure, thank you for listening.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, and we hope to have you on it sometime in the future, and we look forward to seeing you again on the bandstand.
Listen, thank you, and hopefully I'll see you soon, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so here we are with Riyae Park. Riyae, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so for those of you who may not know, but should know, Riyae is one of our Brooklyn's finest. She's a performer, musician, and sixth grader. We've got a chance to speak to her a couple of months ago on the show, and we wanted to get caught up again. So let's get caught up. You were at IBMA, but before that, I think we crossed paths at Ashokan at the, what was that, Southern Week, Northern Week?
Bluegrass Week.
Bluegrass Week. So tell me about how that went.
All right, it was really great. There were a lot of amazing teachers there, and I learned a lot. It was really cool.
Yeah, there were a lot of amazing teachers. That was the Ashokan music camp that Kimber Ludiker was running, and she does a great job. She's also an excellent teacher and gets us to do stuff we weren't quite sure we would be able to do. School must be pretty busy. So at this point, you must be in middle school, right?
Yes.
And the adjusting to that, I guess, is new friends, new teachers, new topics.
Yeah, there's been a lot more work, but I'm trying to keep the schoolwork and the music work balanced.
Yeah, that's important. Do you have a music program where you're going?
There hasn't started with the talents yet, so not yet, but there will be.
So on top of all this, now let's talk about the IBMA World of Bluegrass. That must have been a very busy week for you.
Yeah, it was really busy. Actually, I just got into my new school, and the week after I got in, I went all the way to Chattanooga.
You performed there and you were part of the youth program. What was it like being in that program?
The youth program was really cool. I was in the band with a lot of amazing musicians, and we got to play on the stage together, and it was super fun. And I also actually got to play at a tweener set, which was in between East Nassgrass and Woody Platt and the Bluegrass Gentlemen.
Wow.
It was really fun. And yeah, it was just incredible to be able to play there.
Well, let's tell you this. We got a chance to speak with Ned Luberecki for the show, and we were talking about the kids program, and he remembered you. And he said, yeah, I remember Riyae. She was amazing. So what was your favorite thing about the World of Bluegrass?
My favorite thing was probably that I got to play with kids that were my age that play bluegrass, because a lot of kids my age that I know don't really play bluegrass. Before I played the tweener set, I was backstage and I was rehearsing, and I saw a lady that kind of looked like Missy Range, and I was like, was that Missy Range? Oh, it couldn't be Missy Range.
No.
And so I went on the stage, and when I came down, Missy Range was just standing there, and she was like, oh my God, you're amazing. And it was truly amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the songs I played called Can't You Hear Me Calling, when I was practicing it before, I messed up and played a 2 instead of a 5. And anyway, I was like, it sounds so cool. I'm going to totally do that. And after I played, Missy Range was like, oh my God, why did you do that? It was so awesome. And I was like, oh, I just messed up and I thought it sounded cool, so I did it. And she was super nice about it.
Yeah, it's amazing running into these people and getting that kind of encouragement and get that kind of interaction. That was in September, right? So what else have you musically been doing since September?
After IBMA, I got to go to Nashville for a while.
Oh, wow.
And I got to play at the Station Inn, and it was super fun. So
Amazing.
That was definitely a big thing.
That's pretty amazing. Wow, the big time.
I got to visit the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Whoa.
It's just incredible there. There's so much amazing artifacts.
So what made you stop and stare when you were passing through the museum?
I got to see a lot of my heroes' goals when they were younger, and I thought that was really cool.
Anything else fun in Nashville?
I got to see a performance by Larry and Joe, and they're incredible. And then after that, I got to play at the Brooklyn Folk Festival.
I'm going to interrupt you. The Brooklyn Folk Festival is an annual event here in Brooklyn, right? And it's mostly at St. Anne's Church in Dumbo, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn, but there's other venues, and it's a couple of days of performances, which by very well-known and not yet well-known performers like Riyae. So, Riyae, tell us about it.
I got to play at a coffee house stage, and it was really amazing. And I want to give a shout out to Jalopy Theatre School of Music, because they've been so supportive and they're just amazing. I got to play a few songs with my fiddle teacher, Jackson Lintz, and he is just so amazing.
So Brooklyn Folk Festival, IBMA, Nashville. So going back to the question of balance, you raised it before. It's an interesting point. I had 2 kids go through middle school, and keeping activities and schoolwork, which gets very demanding, balanced, was quite a chore. What do you find most challenging about keeping music in your life when you're being loaded down with schoolwork?
To me, my schoolwork is very important. And so I have to do my schoolwork first. Then I try and finish that as fast as I can, but also not rush myself, which can be challenging. And some days, because of that, I can only practice 30 minutes of music, rather than some days I get an hour and 30. But even if I have to practice semi-late, I try and at least touch my instruments before I go to bed.
All right, so you play guitar, you sing, play the fiddle. That I know. I've seen you playing bass. And I think I've seen you play mandolin now and again. Anything else new creep in there?
Recently I've started playing a lot of fingerstyle guitar, which is a little bit different than bluegrass, but it has a similar vibe.
Does that mean you're not using a pick, but you're picking the strings with your fingers?
Yes, and I use a thumb pick.
Uh-huh. So fingerstyle is a bit different than you used to playing. What kind of songs are you playing in fingerstyle?
I've been playing a bit of Tommy Manuel songs, and he's just an incredible fingerstyle guitar player.
Any festivals you're looking forward to in the coming year?
In 2026, I'm excited to be going to the Old Time Warlick at Asokan.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yep, that'll be very fun.
Well, there's so many great opportunities. I think, though, you have to fit it in with your other activities. So any other non-music, non-school activities you're involved with you like to talk about?
I've been pretty busy with chess and music and schoolwork, so there hasn't been much time to do much other stuff. But when I can, I like to do art.
That's very relaxing. It uses a whole other set of skills there. So you've been at music for a while now. You've been playing, performing, practicing diligently. What do you find inspires you and motivates you most to keep going forward?
The thing that motivates me is that once I can do it, then it's going to be really cool. So it helps me keep going, even when it's really tricky.
So what musician or song or artist do you find, or band, I guess, do you find you like to think about or you like to imitate?
Molly Tuttle and Golden Highway is definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And Tommy Emmanuel is also a very big inspiration for me.
So, Riyae, you go down to Jalopy Theater. You're a student there. You attend events. So what's going on there that you're involved with?
One of my favorite bands, May, is going to be coming to play at Jalopy.
Oh, wow.
And I'm really excited for that because
they're
just incredible. And my vocal teacher, Celia Woodsmith, is in that band too.
Wow. Who else are you studying music with?
Currently, my fiddle teacher is Jackson Lynch. And I've started working with Jake Workman for guitar after I met him at IBMA. So
getting all of those really great influences into your mind and into your fingers must be really accelerating your growth.
Yeah, just amazing.
So it's really good to hear that you're still pushing along with music and with all of that stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing where you get to in 2026. I really appreciate you taking time with us today and checking back in. And then let's do this again and then sometime in 2026 and see what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
All right, take it easy. You know, that was really interesting listening to Andy and getting to speak with him. I was really impressed with the number of genres he can express himself in. Everything from straight ahead bluegrass to jazz to klezmer to you name it. As he's really laid his hand on it and put his own voice behind it.
And not only that, with multiple instruments, saxophone, mandolin, clarinet.
And then he puts it like, so I picked up the saxophone, and then I picked up the clarinet, and I learned the guitar. And it's like some of us spend our entire lives trying to learn one of those things.
Right, exactly. Although I think that that's not an uncommon thing for musicians to want to play multiple instruments. And so that is really cool. The other thing that impressed me was how young he was when he started making a name for himself. And what was he, 16? And he started going on tour with people. Most of us can't get our kids out of the house. And, and meanwhile, he's like, see ya, Mom. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
it's great to hear from Riyae. And she's having these incredible musical experiences, and watching her grow up in music and in bluegrass is really a lot of fun.
Yes, it's really great because we're all going to be able to say we knew her when.
That's right. All right. So please remember to follow us at Bluegrass Brooklyn. Please subscribe to, comment on, rate this podcast. You can contact us at mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com if you have any comments or requests or anything like that. Liz, anything else?
No, just hoping to see you all out jamming here. We got lots of jams going on, so check us out.
Yep. We look forward to seeing you around the jam circle.
1, 2, 3.
To take us out, we have Brown County Breakdown by Andy Statman from his Bluegrass Tracks album.